In 1886, a broke, morphine-addicted war veteran mixed cocaine into a syrup and called it medicine. He sold the recipe for $300 and died penniless months later. That syrup is now a company worth over $250 billion. Same red label you've held 100 times. It was literally a drug. So how does a literal drug sold by a man who got nothing become the most famous brand on the planet? This is the story of how Coca-Cola actually got rich. And it's darker than the ads. And no, I'm not making the drug part up. Here's the actual 1885 formula. Coca leaf and cola nut. Cocaine and caffeine in one glass, on purpose. The drug got it noticed. But the drug isn't how they got rich. That part comes later. Start at the bottom. A Confederate cavalryman named John Pemberton. In the war's final weeks, a Union saber opens his chest. He survives, but the wound never stops hurting. So the doctors hand him morphine. And look, back then, that was just medicine. Nobody knew better yet. He got hooked. Hard. Honestly, half the country was. But Pemberton's a chemist. So he tries to invent his way out of his own addiction. His idea? Cure a drug habit with a different drug. Now, what could go wrong? He brews up something he calls Pemberton's French wine coca, a medical wine. Wine plus coca leaf plus cola nut. Translation: alcohol, cocaine, and caffeine in one bottle. He sold it as a brain tonic, a cure for headaches, nerves, and, I love this, impotence. Back then, half of medicine was just confident men selling you cocaine. He fit right in. People drank it. People loved it. Of course they did. It made you feel amazing. Wonder why. It was wine and cocaine. That'll do it. Then Atlanta did the one thing that changed history. It banned booze. Temperance laws, 1886. No more alcohol. So Pemberton yanks the wine out. Left with coca and cola and no booze, he just mixes it with fizzy water instead. His bookkeeper picks the name and writes it out in that swooping script. Coca-Cola. Coca for the cocaine. Cola for the caffeine. They named it after the drugs. Year 1, he sells about 9 glasses a day. 9. He's losing money. Sick, broke, and still chained to morphine. He starts selling off pieces of his own invention. His final stake goes for $300. 5 months later, he's dead. Stomach cancer. 57. Buried in a grave his family couldn't afford a stone for. The man who invented Coca-Cola never saw a dime of it. So, if the inventor died broke, who got the money? Meet Asa Candler, a pharmacist with one talent. He could sell anything. He buys up every scrap of the Coca-Cola formula. Total cost, by 1891, about $2,300. Adjusted for inflation, roughly 70 grand for the entire company. Here's the thing. Candler didn't change the drink much. He changed how you heard about it. He stopped calling it medicine. He started calling it delicious, a treat, not a tonic. Because the syrup was never the secret, the marketing was. So, picture the problem. Nobody's heard of your weird new fizzy tonic. How do you get a town hooked? Other businesses just buy a newspaper ad and pray. Candler thought that was lazy. Candler's answer basically invents modern advertising. He gives it away. Here's the setup. He prints little paper tickets. Each one's good for 1 free glass. He mails them out, hands them to strangers, stuffs them in magazines. The first coupon in history. Now the genius part. A druggist won't stock the stuff. Candler gives him the first barrel of syrup free, then floods his town with free glass tickets. Suddenly the shop's mobbed with people demanding Coke. The druggist becomes a paying customer overnight. On paper, Candler's losing money on every free glass. In reality, he's buying a habit. That's it. That's the whole trick. Honestly, it's still how the whole industry works. The first one's free, then you're theirs. Between 1894 and 1913, roughly 1 in 9 Americans got a free Coke. About 8.5 million of them. Get this. He spent more on ads in 1 year than most Atlanta shops spent in a lifetime. He plastered the logo on anything that didn't move. And a few things that did. Calendars, clocks, trays, wall murals. Your grandma's town square had Coke painted on the side of a building, and it worked. By 1895, Coca-Cola was sold in every single state. Sales went from 9,000 gallons of syrup a year to 76,000. In 4 years, Candler didn't get rich selling a drug. He got rich selling a feeling with the drug along for the ride. But there's still that one ingredient. The cocaine. For years, nobody really blinked. Cocaine was legal and everything, sold at the corner store. Then the mood turns. By the early 1900s, America panics about cocaine. Now here's the ugly part, told straight. A lot of that panic was racist scare stories, not science. But the company reads the room. The cocaine is now a liability. So around 1903, Coca-Cola quietly pulls the active cocaine out of the recipe. No press release, no apology. The drink tastes the same. Nobody minds. Watch this move because they pull it again and again. Yank the bad ingredient, keep the customer. But here's the twist most people never hear. Coca-Cola never stopped using the coca leaf. Not in 1903, not now, not ever. To this day, the recipe still uses a decockinized coca extract for flavor. The drug's pulled out, the leaf stays in, which means Coca-Cola legally imports actual coca leaves into the United States. Tons of them. Every year. There's exactly one company allowed to do it. A chemical plant in New Jersey called Stepan. It's the only place in America the government licenses to import coca leaf. And it does it for one customer. The leftover cocaine, sold off legally to pharmaceutical companies. So a soda recipe is the reason America still legally imports the coca plant at all. Let that sink in. So the next time someone tells you Coke took the cocaine out in 1903, they're half right. They pulled the drug, they kept the supply chain. And nobody really minded that either, because by now, the cocaine was never the point. The brand was. So they had a brand. Now they needed the whole world thirsty. First, they sold you Christmas. Sort of. Let me bust a myth first. You've heard Coca-Cola invented the red Santa Claus. That's not true. A red-suited Santa existed for decades before Coke ever touched him. So no, they didn't invent him. But here's what they did do. In 1931, Coke hired an artist named Sundblom. For over 30 years, his plump, glowing grandfather Santa ran in every magazine, on every billboard. They didn't invent Santa. They just bought the rights to how the whole planet pictures him. Think about that. A soda company quietly redecorated your childhood and handed you a Coke while it did it. Now that's clever marketing. The next part is something else entirely. World War II. America rations sugar. There's barely enough to bake a cake. But sugar is the entire point of Coca-Cola. No sugar, no Coke, no company. So the company's president makes a move that sounds patriotic and is also genius business. He promises every American soldier a Coke for a nickel. Anywhere on Earth. Whatever it costs the company. And because it's for the troops, the government hands Coke a sugar exemption. While you ration, they don't. Then it gets bigger. General Eisenhower personally requests Coke bottling plants shipped to the front. So the Army ships them. 64 Coke plants built across the world on the military's dime. Coke even gave its bottling men Army ranks. Soldiers called them the Coca-Cola Colonels. I mean, think about it. A private army, a sugar exemption, factories shipped free for a soft drink. By the end of the war, GIs had drunk 5 billion bottles. And they'd carried the taste to every country they fought in. When the war ended, those plants stayed. 64 free factories and 64 new markets already built. The US government just paid to make Coca-Cola a global addiction and called it morale. So by now the drug's gone, the brand's everywhere, the money's enormous. Story over? Not quite. Because to stay rich, you have to bury a few things. Let's dig up 3. 1, the sugar science. By the 2010s, everyone knew sugary drinks fuel obesity. Bad news for Coke. Now you can't pull the sugar, and sugar's the whole product. So they did the next best thing. So in 2015, Coke quietly funds a group of scientists, the Global Energy Balance Network. Their message? Don't worry about what you drink. Just exercise more. The problem isn't sugar. It's you. Same playbook as the cocaine. The science gets inconvenient, so you fund your own science. It looked independent. It wasn't. The New York Times got the emails. Coke picked the leaders and wrote the mission. Caught, the group folded within months. But the spend was staggering. Coke itself admitted spending over $120 million on research and partnerships in 5 years. 2, water. To make Coke, you need water. A lot of it. Often in places that don't have much. In parts of India, communities accused Coke plants of draining the local groundwater dry. Long, bitter fights followed. Coke disputes a lot of it. But the pattern's the same. The cost lands somewhere far from the cash register. 3, plastic. This is the one that's hardest to spin. Every year since 2018, an audit names the world's #1 plastic polluter. It's been Coca-Cola every single time. In one recent count, volunteers logged nearly 34,000 Coke items in a single audit, more than the next 2 brands combined. That's the receipt for all those free coupons and 5-cent bottles, billions of them, washing up on a beach near you. And here's the pattern. The cocaine, the sugar science, the water, the plastic. Every time the world catches on, Coke pulls the bad ingredient, keeps the machine running, and keeps you smiling. That's not an accident. That's the actual business. So let's settle the master question. How did a literal drug become this rich? Add it up. Asa Candler bought the whole thing for the price of a used car. In 1919, he sold it for $25 million. Today that company is worth over $300 billion. A man who got $300 built $1/3 of a trillion. And the secret was never the cocaine. It was the coupon, the kernel, the Santa, the buried study. The drug got you to taste it once. Everything after that was 140 years of marketing genius and quiet cleanup. It was the realization that you don't get rich selling a drink. You get rich selling a feeling and burying the cost. And the scariest part, it worked on us. We never minded. We sang the jingle. We bought the Santa. Pemberton invented it and died for $300. The rest of us just kept drinking. Honestly, so will you. That one's filed under the most famous secret on Earth. Subscribe. There's always another one in the archive.